Hello and welcome. I think we should give folks another minute or so to trickle in. But welcome, you're in the right place, and miraculously so are we. It's beautiful.
Yay. I'll just hold up the issue so people joining can get a pretty view.
Oh my God. Well,
we all have it.
here we go.
Yeah, the art in this issue is stunning. It's
so
incredible.
gorgeous.
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like this is probably my favorite visual. Social florist just rocking out in the tall grasses.
It's great.
For folks arriving, we're in that awkward pre-event time where you get to watch us schmooze. You can imagine some girl from Ipanema music. We didn't add anybody, just kind of like
that would have been great. Okay, well maybe I will get us going. I will get us started. And people can continue to filter in as I give my intro. I'm just going to make sure that anything I send to the chat will go to everyone. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Taja Eisen, and I am the editor-in-chief of Orion magazine. And I'm so excited to welcome you to the celebration of Orion's Spring 2025 issue, Queer Planet, a celebration of biodiversity. And this event is in partnership with Radiolab, the wonderful, endlessly curious investigative podcast, and Lambda Literary, an organization dedicated to nurturing and advocating for LGBTQ+ voices. And here are both of their links in the chat so you can learn more if you don't know already. And as for us, Orion is an independent nonprofit that publishes a quarterly print magazine and original digital content. We tell stories at the intersection of nature and culture, aiming to invite readers into a community of caring for the planet. And I really believe that no issue does that as joyfully and as vitally as the one we're here to celebrate today. This issue explores the ways that the more than human world has always been queer, and how that biodiversity is essential to all of our survival. It is guest edited by the wonderful Lulu Miller. It features an all-star lineup, including today's distinguished panelists, who I will say more about in a second, but also Adrienne Marie Brown, Ocean Vuong, Kristen Arnett, Carmen Maria Machado. And it is an exuberant celebration of the queerness abundant in nature. As part of today's event, we are excited to offer you a 20% off subscription code for our upcoming year. And the code, which I will put in the chat, is fittingly Radiolab. And here's also a link that I'll include to buy individual copies of the spring issue. You can find that here. We have a really exciting lineup planned for 2025 and beyond, and we rely on the support of our readers and donors to keep us going. Just one small bit of Zoom housekeeping. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A function rather than the chat. And it is now my great honor to introduce today's panel. Our host and moderator, Lulu Miller, is a Peabody Award-winning science journalist. She is the co-host of Radiolab and the host and creator of Terrestrials, Radiolab's podcast for kids. Her book, Why Fish Don't Exist, is an international bestseller that's been translated into 11 languages. She is a contributing editor for us at Orion. She guest edited this issue. And she recently published her debut children's book, Truckee Roads. She lives in the Chicago area with her wife and 2 sons. Amy Ray, who we are so excited to have joining us here today, is a musician, activist, and member of the Grammy award-winning duo Indigo Girls. In the spring issue, she conducts an expansive and inspiring conversation with Adrienne Marie Brown about queer ecology, collective action, and the interconnectedness of all things. And finally, also very excited to welcome my friend Sabrina Imbler. Sabrina Imbler is a staff writer for Defector, where they write about non-human life. Their memoir, How Far the Light Reaches, won a Los Angeles Times Book Prize in Science and Technology, and their chapbook, Dyke Geology, was selected for the National Book Foundation's Science and Literature program. They live in Brooklyn with their partner, 2 cats, and a school of fish. And now I'm very excited to hand it over to Lulu Miller, our moderator for today.
All right. Thank you, Taja. Just another quick time for the intro after the intro. I'll keep it fast so that we can get to the legends in these two squares. But first, I really wanted to just say a few quick words about why sitting in this Zoom square at this moment in time means so much to me. So about 3 years ago, I heard about this island full of wild homosexual seagulls. Female to female paired seagulls. They were mating, they were nesting, they were rearing eggs together. And it was this white rabbit for me, or white bird, that pulled me down this kind of wondrous rainbow walled rabbit hole about the queerness so abundant in nature. And I didn't understand how I, as a queer woman, a science reporter, particularly interested in animals and nature, simply had not heard about the extent of queerness in the wild. Sure, I'd heard stories about gay penguins at the zoo, or maybe some farm animals doing some fun queer stuff, but it had always been framed as an outlier, maybe a byproduct of captivity. But the more I looked into it, I learned that, same-sex mating and sex fluidity is this deep part of nature, and often a crucial part of a species' survival. And the reason most of us didn't grow up learning about it is because of a misbelief born and embraced by religion, but then adopted by governments and science itself, which kind of all linked arms to just bully hard facts off the record. Particularly hard facts I wrote about in the introduction, which is literal male beetles mating so intensely that they couldn't pull the penetrating from the penetrated. Anyway, this misbelief is still very alive today, as we can all feel intensely. You can see it at play with the sort of soberness with which government officials can make proclamations, such as Trump's January order declaring that there are only 2 biological sexes, as though the scientific jargon makes it true, as though nature backs him up. Well, I would like to introduce him to our cover bird. This is a green honey creeper whose beautiful patterns is what's called a gyandromorph, which is a creature that is genetically both male and female. And because in birds those differences are expressed through color, you can literally see both characteristics, the male and female, at the same time. I'd also like to introduce him to the California canary fish, which has 3 sexes, or the approximately 500 or so species of fish that switch between sexes, sometimes back and forth fluidly over their lifetime, or to mushrooms with thousands of sexes. The list goes on and on. Discriminate against us all you will, cut off life-saving care, recriminalize queerness, but don't call it scientific truth. For scientific truth, look here. Inside there is this amazing roster of writers and artists who ran at the theme of queer ecology and unearthed queerness inside prairies and wildfire smoke and hurricanes and cloned dogs and grief and beach roses and, relevant for today, music. This issue for me is truly a blueprint for how to organize in the face of whatever is coming our way, how to root together and withstand hurricanes, as Amy and Adrienne talked about, how to survive the storm, how to come alive with new seeds after a fire, to remember we belong here. But it is also a blueprint for finding joy and rejoicing. Amy Ray, Sabrina Imbler, now I turn to you first with a thanks for bringing your full souls to this magazine and for being here. And so now it is time to rejoice. And I would like to kick off with a question for both of you about song. So both of what you contributed has to do with song. Sabrina, song in the animal world and in your own life, and booze hounded karaoke bars. Song is obviously a part of the conversation you had, and the power, how your songs have evolved, and the power of song for ritual and community building. And yeah, I think as because it was in this issue about nature, and there's so much about how song can help creatures survive, communicate, mating calls, find each other. I wondered for both of you, um, how has song played a role in your survival? So maybe we kick off with Amy.
Well, I mean, song is, it's so integral that it's hard to even, put words about it. I mean, from the time you're born, in your mother's womb, you're hearing song all around you. You're hearing nature, you're hearing, I spent a lot of time at the ocean. You're hearing the ocean. I had a lot of dogs, so dogs barking, cats meowing, I've always been way into birds, and my parents were too as well. So I feel like nature's music has been the most grounding thing for me. And then I got into music myself, and at first, I didn't relate it consciously. I just played guitar. I related it more, I think, to protest music from the 60s and 70s, and kind of growing up the younger sister of someone that was really into Woodstock and the hippie sort of movement. And then I think I started to, of course, nature was my love as a child. I mean, I spent all my time outside, and so it started to be kind of married to that, I think, when I was writing words. And at first, when I was young, I would write about seagulls and, little things when you're in the fourth grade, and just sing about nature a lot. And then I started just, maybe writing more story songs and stuff. But I've always used a lot of, I don't know, it just enters into my life as metaphors a lot, because I take a lot of cues from what's going on outside. I live in the woods. I find it to be the thing that saved my life and made me not so depressed and not drinking all the time and things like that. So it is grounding for me. It's everything for me.
Yeah. Is there a metaphor or two, a line you could point out?
I mean, I'll sing a song later that, there's so much metaphor. I have a song called Chuck Will's Widow that I'll sing later. And I was outside one night, and this time of year they come out down in Georgia, and there's just this incessant call all night long. And I wrote a song about it as a metaphor for like my own loneliness of this bird that was missing its mate. And so it's just singing all night long, and which is kind of, what I do. A lot of times I just can't sleep. So what I do is, I'll play guitar, or I'll go outside and I'll walk around the woods and I'll sing. And, so it's that. It's like I wrote a song called North Star, thinking about my end of life, and just the metaphor of using the North Star as and the deer trails, and the way the migration of birds as your way of finding home. And so, and that tied in with civil rights. And I just think nature is, it's such a groundwork for everything, and it's such a map for everything, that you can find your activism in it. You can find your heart and your soul and love. And so it just shows up in songs, and I tend to use a lot of references.
I'm going to turn to you, Sabrina, but crucially, really quick, Amy, the bird was what?
The Chuck Will's Widow.
Chuck Will's Widow. And what does it sound like? What?
It's like a, so there's a whippoorwill, and it's the answer to the whippoorwill. So the whippoorwill is like a bird that has a cry that's also incessant. And Chuck Will's Widow, the story is it's a dark story, but it's the whippoorwill. It's the whippoorwill's widow that died. So it's Chuck Will is the whippoorwill, and the whippoorwill, and so let me get this straight. So it's whippoorwill. So Will is the one that dies, and the bird that is singing all night is Chuck Will's widow. And so those are the two birds that are. I looked this up because the lore I had heard growing up was, whip poor Will, which is, one of this very Southern Gothic kind of terrible, thing. And then the Chuck Will's widow is the bird that is actually the widow of Will. And they're not really related, but they're both they're nightjars, but they both have a song that repeats itself over and over again. And they both come up at the same time around in the end of April, beginning of May down in Georgia. and their songs are they just literally repeat the same song like constantly. And the whippoorwills do that. So this is kind of like a whippoorwill, but it's a different breed.
Wow. Okay. So that's the foreshadow. We'll get to hear that more.
Yeah.
Live art, you guys. We're going to get some live art. Okay. Okay, Sabrina, what about you? I mean, I know it's so abundant in that essay. Feel free to talk about it in the essay or in another way. Like, has song played a role in your survival for real? And if so, what kinds of roles?
Absolutely. I mean, I just feel like I have to acknowledge the elephant in the room and just say I'm so starstruck to be in this room with you, Lulu, and you, Amy. And I saw you and Emily perform at Chautauqua last summer, and I was there writing this essay about the experience of watching my grandma die, and I was listening to a lot of Indigo Girls, and I feel like that was just the perfect moment to really like be immersing myself in your music, because so much of it is about questions of God and questions of death and questions of like love and togetherness. And I feel like that was a moment where I was just like wandering the grounds. I was listening to your music. Like I felt very saved then. Um, and then I think moments where maybe not song but singing has saved me. Like I've always loved karaoke. I'm like a former theater kid. I love attention. And I think karaoke is a wonderful place, right, to go to have a little spotlight for a moment. But when I started medically transitioning and went on testosterone, I knew that my voice would change and my voice would drop, and my relationship with karaoke, which was once this place of, unadulterated joy and exuberance, felt suddenly very difficult and very fraught, especially, to sing in front of strangers. I felt like I really had to relearn to sing in many ways. And these songs that were once so important to me, I had lost my ability to sing them as I once had. I was trying to sing some new songs, but my voice was, much deeper. And when I was trying to think about, how I wanted to write about this, I was, of course, looking to singing animals, because, animal song, it's dangerous for any animal to sing because you make yourself visible, you make yourself known, you open yourself up to predators. But, you know, animals sing because they need to find each other. They need to find each other to mate, to socialize, for all these different things. And that really spoke to me. But when I was thinking about the singing animals, there are obviously birds, which have beautiful, beautiful songs that we love. There are whales, which have incredibly complex songs. And then there are insects, which sing as well, but those songs are much less legible to us as art, as something that we'd want to listen to. And that really resonated with me as someone who would like suddenly, the way that I sung didn't feel very musical at all. It felt very strange. It felt very vibrational. And so I found that looking to, an animal like a cricket really felt like a nice entry point into me understanding the songs that I had lost and the new songs I was trying to sing.
That's so beautiful. Like I know and cherish the essay in here. So the essay that Sabrina wrote, we'll get a little sample in a second, but it's called Key Changes. And it screams to want to also be sonified because it's about sound and song in the animal world. And we are going to air it on Radiolab, a very special version, in a couple weeks. But I hadn't realized, so I know the essay intimately, but just you saying that, like the connection between the rasp, as you call it, of the cricket, which is made with wings and it's not lungs and it doesn't have that same warmth, but realizing that as you talk about your own larynx almost like crackling and stretching, I hadn't realized like that the cricket in particular was this sort of siren of resonance or something. That's really interesting because the song doesn't have to come through the throat. It can come in all kinds of ways.
Yeah. And so many insects, like they sing with their legs, they sing with their wings, they sing with these weird organs called tymbals. Like that's how cicadas sing. And that
What's a
felt
tremble?
That's a great question.
Okay, for later.
I think it's like a drum, a little bit like a drum, but I don't want to spread any misinformation about any cicada misinformation right now.
Okay.
But absolutely, like when your voice drops on testosterone, like it becomes gravelly, it becomes very vibrational. And I was like, I was never a bird, but I'm even further from bird at this stage in my life. I'm very much more aligned with crickets.
Yeah.
But can I just say I loved your essay so much. I thought it was
Thank you.
incredible. I really did. And I just, there were so many things about it that I was like, oh, I've got to talk to my kid about this. And because my kid's non-binary and we're just kind of figuring all these things out. And and we listen to tree frogs and crickets when they start singing in the spring. It's just the most fun thing to do is go out and try to find where they are by their song, which I know they don't want to be found necessarily, but we use it. But, and also Lulu, I want to acknowledge too, like I listen to terrestrial with my kid all the time because it's
no,
so good.
okay, we'll die now too.
Yeah. I know it's great. I mean,
but that observation, Sabrina, about song being that you have to make yourself vulnerable, that like it is a literal danger, like that and one way to think about that is like cost of lust, like you want to, you're singing out to attract the mate, and that, I don't know, I guess I wonder for you, Amy, like that real vulnerability, the risk that can come with song, has that ever been a struggle for you throughout your life, or was it always just no brainer?
no, it's always a struggle, you're vulnerable. And yeah, I mean, I feel like once I get on stage in front, I'm singing, once I start singing, I'm good. But before that, I'm nervous and I'm scared. And it's kind of like, it's like if I go to like a protest or something, like I'm often scared about speaking out. But once I start singing, I'm just like, I'm good. It's like a shield for me. And I'm trying to get better at not singing, at being able to be brave when I'm not singing, which is hard. But I think the voice is very vulnerable generally. And I think now there's so much like gender tied with voice, and I'm always called sir, which I'm always kind of like, when I was a kid, it was confusing because I was like, well, I sort of identify as a boy, but I call myself she. And I kind of like it when people call me sir, but it's sort of confusing because I also don't like it because it feels like a mistake. And like I've struggled with that my whole life, and now my kid's struggling with it. So, and I think the voice is this thing that, people associate with gender in this way that's so, to me, loaded and vulnerable. And it doesn't allow you to just be fluid and have the voice you have, and low, high, whatever it is. I don't like it that it's so tied to that. I mean, I had this experience. I went to Vanderbilt Medical, a facility for vocals, because they had to be the best thing to go to. And I had some vocal problems, and it was the worst experience because I got this the first doctor I saw was great. He was a sort of seasoned, just singing specialist who I just sung for. And he, wanted me to, and they took pictures and all that of my voice, my throat and everything. But when I talked to this lady afterward, she would not let go. She was convinced I was taking testosterone. And I was like, no, my voice has been low my whole life. Really, it's just naturally, this is naturally in my body. I must have extra, I don't know. And she basically like berated me and and was like, I know you're taking testosterone. You can be honest with me. But actually you couldn't really be honest with her because she probably had a real problem with that. You know what I'm saying? And I realized when I left, because it really was hard for me. I just walked out after a while, after she wouldn't stop. And I never said anything to the hospital about it. I never, called them. I think I was shamed. And it really made me think about the voice. And wow, there's so much loaded in this, and people judging you. And which is why your essay was so, it actually made me feel good to read it, because it was like, oh, someone's thinking about the vulnerability of your voice and how it sounds and what it can achieve or not achieve. And, when it's hard, if you're in a different place than you were, like as I get older, I lose certain parts of my range or this or that, and then people judge you based on what it sounds like. So I think I haven't untangled all of it because it's been an ongoing thing like my whole life, voice, gender, the fact that we can't just be who we are, and be completely, fluid and, everybody's beautiful kind of thing. But I think, for me, like once I start singing, all of that goes away. The voice is in your head. And once and when I hear my dogs howling, that all goes away too. Like if my husky is singing, I'm like, that's a beautiful song, So, so yeah, I relate.
A quick follow-up on that, Amy, like the sense that the singing voice can be a shield, or in that talking for you feels scarier. Is it the pre-written? Is it like, okay, I've got the lyrics I can just slip into? Or is it the melody? Is it
It's
using words? Like, what makes the shield?
it's community, really, because once you start singing, because it's not, I don't always remember my lyrics, so that's kind of, sometimes it's nerve-wracking that you're going to forget the chords or the lyrics. So you really have to just be zen and think about community and the channeling of music from other places through yourself, like, because it's just a magical thing that happens. And I think singing with Emily, for me, I've sung with Emily since I was 10. No, I mean, I've known Emily since I was 10, and we've sung together since we were 15. So the most of the shield is in the collaboration with someone else. It also happens with my solo band. We play like country music, and we've been together like 12 years. And I feel the same thing when I'm all by myself singing. I'm very nervous. I don't
Mm,
love it, you know, but
mm,
so there's a little bit of a shield, but the biggest shield to me when I think about when you ask that is like is the collaborative community, is company,
yeah.
it's the tribe, it's the, you're with people, you're with your other singing people.
Yeah,
And
your voices are ejecting from the self and
yeah,
joining each other. Yeah. Okay, well, I think we should do just, I think if Sabrina, if you're up for it, so that everyone in the audience who hasn't read it yet can get a flavor of what Amy and I are geeking out about how gorgeous this essay is. Would you be willing to read us the first 3 paragraphs, maybe, just so folks can get a
Absolutely.
sense of the sorcery you pull about where voice comes from?
Yes, totally. So these are the first 3 paragraphs of Key Changes, which amazing art, amazing
yeah,
cricket and parasitic fly art. The first sound in the universe is joylessly underwhelming, white noise boring through the taffy stretch of nascent space. The Big Bang is not a bang, but a droning robotic purr, galaxies expanding from the hot throat of a cat. Things cool, atoms whirl into being, then light, scattering in the cosmic fog. Gas clumps to form the first stars, whose huddled masses in turn form the first galaxies. A storm of gas and dust collapses, perhaps T-boned by a nearby supernova, skidding and spinning into a sun, our sun. All of this cacophony, the universe ringing like a cosmic bell, would be brutal for anyone around to hear it. But there is no one, not yet. Life remains entirely uninvented, and when it finally appears, likely around 700 million years later, ears remain entirely uninvented too. So no one hears the torrent of the first oceans, the slick of the first big freeze, the jostling of the continents. Life pleats, becomes multicellular. Sponges drink in the ocean, fungi unfurl, worms slither in the murk. Eventually, the first plants extrude from land and insects skitter. As seedlings swell skyward, thundering into forests, insects sprout wings and join them. This living does not happen silently, bodies scraping through brush, whirring of wings, exoskeletons crunched by jaws. But these noises are unintentional. They are not meant for anyone. This changes 270 million years ago when an insect akin to a cricket scrapes one ornamented wing over another, veins stiffened like corduroy, creating a rasp. The rasp does not sound like a song or even like a note. You might mistake it for one rock scuffing against another. But however tuneless, the rasp of Permostridulus brongniardi became what biologist David George Haskell calls the first known earthly voice. And that is where I'll stop.
Um, if I could teach a course on every word choice in those like beats, rasp, I mean, it is just so gorgeous. And it really makes me think about the role of intentionality in voice. Like, obviously, I have dedicated my professional life to audio. I love radio. I love what the human voice can convey intentionally and unintentionally. And I guess I wonder if just this, the essay goes on to be this tremendous exploration of cricket song, cricket losing voices, your voice transitioning, your singing voice losing it, but enjoying the loss and the transition. And I guess I wonder about if learning how song was formed on Earth, how it is taught in some species and intuitive or just genetically inside in others, intentional, sometimes unintentional. I don't know, how did the process of writing this and learning all about it change or transform your relationship to your own voice? What was the journey for you?
Absolutely. I mean, when I started writing this essay, I really, I knew every cricket has its own song that is distinct from the song of any other cricket. And, the song can change a little bit according to temperature or to seasons or whatever. But I went in thinking every cricket has like that special cricket song. And I, as a karaokeer, have my one special karaoke song that I sing, which was for a long time Lips of an Angel by Hinder. And the more
Wait, you might need to, can you give a sample so people can
oh God.
Come on.
Yeah, it's like the song that goes like um honey, why you calling me so late? And it's like about a man who is cheating on his girlfriend by calling his old girlfriend. It's like a very melodramatic um earnest song, and I love an earnest song. But I think the more that I learned about the evolution of song in species like crickets and birds and whales, I think the more I learned about its mutability, and the more that I realized, right, that these cricket species, they have this one particular song right now in this moment of presence on Earth, but that might be totally different in 20 years. That might have been different 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. And I think that's been something I've been trying to embrace just, as a queer person, as a trans person, the remarkable ability of a body and a species to adapt and to change. And I think that really made me rethink the way that I think about loss. Like when I was looking for resources to try to sort of prepare for my voice to change in transition, for me to lose notes, for me to gain new notes, for me to sort of have just a different kind of voice. I think the way that people often talk about this is grieving your old voice of I had this beautiful voice and then I took testosterone and I destroyed it. And that felt so wrong to me because right, as you were saying earlier, Amy, change happens to all of our voices just as we live, regardless if we're transitioning, if we're not transitioning. It changes with illness, it changes with disability, it changes with vocal training, right? It is such a mutable thing. And so I think I came into this essay being I'm going to mourn my old voice and accept my new voice. But, I just found myself I don't mourn that old voice at all. I don't miss it. And it's funny. And, one of the lines in the essay, when I was in college, this person I knew called me that bitch with the This American Life voice, because I apparently had a very, I don't know, podcasty friendly, radio friendly voice. And I was listening to my old voicemail on my phone a couple of months ago, and it was completely unrecognizable. And I was I like this voice much better. I like the gravitas, I like the gravel, I have vocal fry, it's just a totally different thing. But I think it really helped me understand, right, loss is natural and it's not always something that needs to be mourned. And right, I'm excited for all the future iterations of my voice, the changes that come intentionally and the changes that come unintentionally, because when you get a new voice, you can sing new songs, and that feels like a perfect metaphor for me for just moving through life with change.
Yeah, I have to just say that the way you busted up that narrative is one of my favorite things about this essay. And I gotta just share with people this line, which just feels like a gift for anyone in the world who's ever struggled with something like uncertainty with what's happening or an unknown in their body or their life, which I think is everybody. But you reframed it into this much more complex thing, where you talk about it both as like transitioning between one voice and another, like a blinking satellite, boop, boop, destination unknown. You're not sure where it's going. And then you go to, oh, here we go. Okay. Then you go to, our bodies are always in a state of change, strengthening and crumbling, breaking down and repairing themselves in thousands of ways. Here it comes. It is a gift to wait with bated breath for your body, which had seemed so solid and immutable, to surprise you, to constantly become strange to yourself, re-encountering the wild, slickened animal of yourself each day. Like, what a reframe and a connection, as you were talking about, Amy, like with the howls and the frogs, of like a connection, whether it's wrinkles, you know, like whatever it is that's happening, to the animal that like is still somewhere inside us. And I just like, I thank you for that realization, for the way you share it. It's so beautiful. Amy, I have a question for you, but if you want to, I don't want to, if you have anything else you want to say on voice, or, okay.
No, I just think that it's that is such your writing is a gift, the way you talk about all this. And in the industry of, like, in my peer group of aging singers, you know, it's like a real struggle to honor the change of the look of your body, of your voice, of what you can and can't do. And a lot of people just like get cynical and mad about, like, trying to honor the change, because it's just like, I don't want this other thing. I want to be what I was 20 years ago, but I love to think about the way it is a gift, and the animals that can just are so graceful about the way they change, dogs. I have a lot of dogs, so I watch them age. But they go with it, right?
Yeah. I just really quickly, I mean, I think there's something so beautiful in listening to a changed voice, whether it's been changed by, right, hormones or aging, because it's like, that's a voice that has a legacy. Like, that's a voice that has such a rich story and has gone through so many iterations and like carries such a history. And like, to arrive at that point with that voice, like, it's very beautiful to me.
And I think it's electric. Like, the cartoonist Linda Berry talks about like how much she loves an amateur line, like when a non-artist is drawing, because it's jagged and there's fear and there's discovery and exploration, as opposed to some gorgeous someone who like knows what they're doing. And I think, and I love that idea that like there's something to find there. And as a listener, I think my favorite, literally my day job, is trying to get people to go off, like get away from like their cocktail party spiel. Like, here's what I do. Here's how I tell this story. I'm like, that has these grooves. You can hear a voice knowing where it's going, and almost going on autopilot. And it's like when you kick someone into a place where they're not sure, and suddenly there's more ums and there's stepping stones, and they are discovering. And like, I think that's the same, like, what, I don't know, this ability to kind of welcome that discovery as a gift. Like, it's like Santa is coming with old age or your new transition voice. And if you can look at it that way, it's beautiful. So I just, yeah. I think one other really quick, a very brave, important gift of a line in this essay is like, you do say, you're busting up the grief narrative, but you do say, and I miss the process of transitioning has not been without some regret. And you let that line in there, which I think, like, in these polarized times, it's so scary to even use the word regret, because it's this, and I wondered about, like, just briefly your choice to do that. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think
worrying not to, or I don't know.
It always felt very, I never doubted putting that line in. And I should say that, like, I'm working on a new book about bugs that's, I guess, related to a lot of the questions that are in this essay. But the argument of this book that I'm writing is, like, for the right of anyone to change their body for whatever reason, like, in any way, like, just arguing for that autonomy for people in terms of transition, in terms of other things, like, the idea, right? Like none of us like asked to be born, and yet we are here. And like the thing that is unutterably ours is our body. And like we should control, like we hold agency over that. And I think as someone who my experience of transition has not been right. I'm going from A to B, and now I'm in B, and I'm not thinking about A. It's like I've, meandered. I've fallen into a ditch. I've gotten back up on the road. I've like stopped to look at a puddle because there was a newt by that puddle. And I think I've been so inspired by people who have sort of taken these like pick and choose approaches of transition of like, actually just want these things. I don't need all of it. Or, I'm going to go over here and, for me, like there might be some things that I regret, but the things that I'm promised like are more exciting than that. So I think I wanted to give myself permission to, right, not have to stand by this uncomplicated, like everything that happened, I'm excited about, like, and to be candid here, the thing I'm talking about is that when you go on testosterone, you get ass hair. And that was not something that I was like enthused about.
You were like, wait.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, am I not going to transition because I'm going to get ass hair? It's like, no, of course that's worth it for me. But it's like, like I could have gone without it, So I just wanted to, I just wanted to
appreciate it. We are here for scientific truth.
Yeah, for like more complicated approaches and more complicated feelings about our bodies and how we steward them.
Yeah. Okay, well, so Amy, I want to ask you about the term queer ecology, but I also want to ask you something else, and I want to make sure we have time for you to sing. So I'm going to ask the thing I'm really curious about, which is the color indigo. So I don't know where the name the Indigo Girls came from. I realized I could look it up, but I just wanted to ask you, since we have you do better than Google. So I wondered where the term has come from for you, and also, yeah, how watching indigo as a color in nature has been a part of your life. Like it is this limit, at least in the sky, it's this liminal moment. It's this transition. You get it. It's not dusk. It's like the dusk between dusk and night. And it's like this shimmer of darkness and beauty and shape shifting. And and then there's a whole, like, there's not much of it in nature, but then, I don't know, in plants, but I guess, so my two-part question is, where did the name come from? And how have you been in conversation with the color in your life in terms of noticing it or how it changes? So yeah, take us on an indigo journey.
Well, I mean, it came when we were, I don't know, 18 years old, so pretty young. Honestly, I wish it was all those really great things. It was more like we need a name because we have to open for, I don't know who it was. It was Lloyd Cole and the Commotions or something at this bar. And we got to have a band name because we're just Celliers and Ray right now. And that doesn't sound like a real band. So I was flipping through the dictionary and I saw the word indigo and I liked the definition. And it also had been a pretty significant crop, in the South, but it's also associated with so much negative stuff too. Which I didn't, I was like, what did I know? I'm 18 years old. I'm like a Southern redneck. So I'm just like, sounds cool, And then through my life, my conversation with that color has been finding out all of I love blue and I love that transitional time. And I love the liminal space generally in everything. But so I think my conversation has been discovering more and more about that name as we've been together for so long. And we've had to think about what our name is because now we're not even girls, I mean, I'm not even woman. I mean, I don't even know, so it's very complicated. And I just read this book by Imani Perry called Black and Blues, and it has a deep dive into indigo. And and it's a real like schooling moment about all of the beauty and the weight that holds and just the color blue and the indigo, the crop, the dye, how it was made, who made it, who brought the knowledge of that to the South, which was enslaved people. And I was reading the book and I was just like, oh my God, I wish I had known all this. I don't even know if I would have thought that was a good name to use because it's so heavy and I shouldn't even, it's not something I want to have ownership over, right? And I like dashed off like an email I'm a fan of Imani Perry. And so I wrote like her contact or whatever once, and then she wrote back. So I wrote her back and I was like, I just finished this book. I'm really like, I don't even know what to say about our name being Indigo Girls. And then she wrote back something really nice. But I think, so your conversation with something like that is, I mean, I don't want to be long-winded. It's overwhelmingly like challenging your whole life of all of the different points that has, because we were just so young. We were like, oh, that's a cool word. We like the color blue, you know, and it goes good with the word girls. Let's do it. And then it's like, and now we're 60 years old and we're like, wow, was that really a good choice? You know, too late now. You know what I mean? So I just think you live with things, you know, kind of like there's some things you can live with and some things you got to change, but that one we can't really change and we don't want to for some reason.
Well, it's interesting. That's like a whole microcosm of, I think, the broader definition of queer ecology, which goes beyond just like, haha, cool, gay animals, which, to be clear, is great. But this idea that like science, you know, nature is wilder than the categories we put on it. And I think increasingly, as I've learned about the world of queer ecology, which is a huge, vast world, interdisciplinary world, it's like people just showing the ways in which, you know, Flores, Edgar Social Flores talks about decolonizing the flower, and this idea of like, when you rip off a scientific name, a colonial name, you get all this knowledge, this indigenous knowledge from people who lived with plants for millennia and might have clues in the name itself that we then like or that, you know, people plastered over, like this plant brings fire or whatever. And I feel like that's this perfect microcosm of the idea that like nature continues to be wilder than our words for it. And for me, the broadest definition of queer ecology, and why I wanted to do this issue with Orion, who like I adore so much, is that it's the broader thing. These might be observations that have nothing to do with sexuality, but just nature being wilder than our word for it. And, you know, so, okay, in honor of songs and audience, I am going to turn, if you are willing, Amy, to, you know, I asked if you would play the song, and if you want to just intro it anymore, and then audience, we'll turn to you for some questions. And again, thank you everyone for being here. And this is a dream Zoom. It is rare that I look forward to Zooms.
Thanks. I mean, thank you, Sabrina, and thank you, Lulu. I'm a big fan of what you do. I was very honored to be on this and to interview Adrienne Maree Brown. Honestly, I'm a big fan of Adrienne Maree Brown's writing. I mean, huge, and I've read all the books. So that was like, and I didn't really know. I was like, queer ecology, what is that? Which is very funny that I didn't. I guess it's all queer to me anyway, but I learned it through the indigenous lens, really, of everything I know more about environmentalism and stuff. So, which is a very queer lens as well. But anyway, thank you. This is that song, Chuck Will's Widow. I'm going to try to do this. I'm not good at singing on Zooms. I'll just put a disclaimer in there.
We appreciate the adventure.
Okay. Even a sad song. Let me start over. Even a sad song is better than no song at all. First Chuck Will's widow of a season. I just figured out that lonely bird's reason. Sleeping all day, singing the same song all night long. Poor Will is gone, the sadness is defeating. That aching in your heart surely bears repeating. But it takes all day to gather up the strength to sing this song. I get lost, sad and lonely, so I count the stars above me, and I sing when I should be sleeping, 'cause that's when the world hears my weeping. My neighbors been shooting, they can't get enough. Baby, I'm just Billy Goat's gruff. Around midnight, it'll get tough when it gets quiet. It's just some old tin cans and a buckshot gun. I should be flying down the road in the warm and sun. Park my motorcycle when the day is done and say goodnight. But I get lost, sad and lonely, count the stars above me, and I sing when I should be sleeping, 'cause that's when the world is my weeping. Even a sad song is better than no song at all. Lose your will, lose your destination, voices in your head are keeping you guessing. If it all goes south, count it as a blessing. That's where you are. Yeah, that's where you are. You get sad, lost and lonely. You can't count the stars above you, and you can't sing when you should be sleeping, 'cause that's when the world is your weeping. Yeah, you can't sing when you should be sleeping. All right. Well, I messed a couple chords up, but I got it out.
That was so great. My long game of a personal Zoom Amy Ray concert has been achieved. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Well, in our remaining 8 minutes, I'm going to turn to the questions, but I forget how to find them, but I found them.
Q&A.
'Cause I'm a professional. Okay. I should have been reading them. I was just grooving. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Okay. First from Sydney. For Sabrina, how do you find these comparisons with yourself and nature? Everything I read of yours seems so natural, but I never could think of it myself. Do you happen to notice? Do you start at an endpoint and move backwards? I've kind of wondered about this. Like, do the creatures find you? Do you find the creatures?
Yeah, I'll answer this briefly. I'm lucky to have a job where, as a science journalist, I'm just constantly learning about some weird creatures doing weird ass things. And I think if you just are able to encounter different kinds of lives, new species, new ways of living, new kinds of parasitism, and just kind of file them away like in a Google Doc or in your mind. Those connections will come. And if you want to really make it an exercise, what I did for my first book is I made a T-chart and I put the creatures that I was interested in on one side, and then I put personal experiences on the other side. And I think just by seeing things that my mind wouldn't naturally have connected, like a hairy crab at the bottom of the ocean with like queer nightlife, I think just seeing them in the same place allowed me to sort of make some of those connections. But I would say the most important thing is like, if your gut tells you that there's a creature that speaks to you in some way, like to really trust that instinct and to dig into it, because I feel like you're just seeing that one thread, but your mind might have, a whole root system of the ways in which you and that species are entangled.
Yeah. I love that advice. I once heard Ross Gay, who is also in this issue, speak about like he has to fight against once he knows how to do an essay. He's like, I learned how to do it, but once I know how, that's the death. And like, I have to reach for an unknown. He's like, I don't always, because like, I know how to do it, but it's like the better ones. And I wonder for you, Amy, what about that? Like the songs, the metaphors in the songs, do you know their meaning, or is it the process of writing and singing that helps you find it?
Writing, it helps me find it, just to sing freestyle into a voice memo thing, and then make a log of what I sang, because I try not to think about it. And then I also keep a lyric, like a diary, but I'm not a wordsmith like Sabrina is. I really, for me to find like a way, I just don't have my brain doesn't work that way very quickly. So it really takes me quite a while to like say what I want to say. But I try to do the first thing is just not to limit myself at all and just don't judge or anything and just sing and write free, just stream of consciousness, whatever comes up, whatever chords you play. That's why I miss chords a lot because I'm always turning my chords around and trying to figure it out to play in a different way. And then I just forget what I was supposed to do. But I try to just be really free at first and then take it and edit, and figure out like what are the good things about this or what are the things that speak, I guess, and speak to somebody besides just me. What's going to I just try to pretend I'm telling a story to somebody and I'm trying to convey something that they will use for their own life and tell their own story with it.
So like you're thinking about giving gifts, giving morsels people can then go take.
I don't know how much of a gift it is to anybody. It's a gift to myself for sure. But
so if you read there's a lot of gifts. And really quick, Terry Klee was wondering what was the name of that perfect song again?
It's called Chuck Will's Widow.
Chuck Will's Widow. Okay, another question came in. Someone asked Sabrina, what is your favorite fish sound? And I would also ask for Amy, what is your favorite sound in nature?
Oh, okay. A lot of great fish sounds. A lot of fish sing, and again, they don't sing with their throats, but they inflate and deflate their swim bladders to make like popping sounds. And this is a little bit of a slant answer, but I love the sound of snapping shrimp. They are the chorus of coral reefs. They make this like crackling, almost like you're frying popcorn like in a pan on the stove. It's just this beautiful sound. And if you're ever like in a coral, not in a, if you ever by a coral reef, like snorkeling or something, and you hear this like crackling, that's the sound of thousands of shrimp just making their little snaps. It's a beautiful, beautiful sound, and you can just find it on YouTube.
Okay. Amy, favorite nature song? And by the way, this came from Leora Hadas. Thank you, Leora, for this.
Oh my God, that's like impossible to answer. There's
favorite. Okay, not V. Forget superlatives. They're a favorite.
You know what I love is when you're watching dolphins and they're close by and everything gets very quiet and you just hear the sound of their whatever the blowhole thing, I don't know what it's called, but you hear them breathing through that. It's just, and it just becomes, if they're in like a pod and there's like, I have this place where I can go in Florida and just watch these 5 dolphins that always go there for like the last 5 years, 10 years I've seen them. And at one moment they'll be going in and out of the water and it just becomes a very zen experience to just close your eyes and listen to that. It's the breath of the dolphin and it's so calm, and they know what they're doing, and it gives you a little bit of confidence in the world, I guess, to have a creature in front of you that's so sure of itself in that way.
And breathing too. Breathing.
Yeah, they're just breathing.
Yeah.
And they're doing what they do so well.
Well, we could go on, but we're gonna respect everyone's hour. And I guess Taja, if you wanna, I just thank you both, Amy and Sabrina. This is truly a dream come true, and I know that everything that's in the issue, every idea you discussed and wrote about is so powerful, and is gonna stick with me forever. I seriously am gonna like rip some of these pages out and put them on my wall. And so yeah, I hope audience members, if you don't subscribe, that you do check it out. This Orion, no matter the issue, is so special. And yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Lulu. Thank you to you as well for this. Just, you were such a wonderful, joyful collaborator on this issue and for facilitating this wonderful event. And thank you to all of you, to Amy, to Sabrina. I am such a fan of all of your work, and I will count myself forever lucky that we got to collaborate on this issue and share this virtual musical space. It was like kind of emotional backstage. I will let you know. I will let you know while the music was going on. We were having a lot of feelings. So thank you. I want to let everyone know that the recording of this event will be shared afterwards. And I encourage you and implore you to subscribe to Orion for more, wonderful writing like this. I'll share our code once more for 20% off of subscriptions. Thank you to Lambda Literary, thank you to Radiolab, and thank you all so much for being here for this just really, really special launch event. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.